Sam's just giving up.
Way too much else for two
I was just waiting for him to turn the camera on.
All right, we'll call the regular city council meeting to order, Monday, March 13th, 7 p.m. Roll call.
Paul Otto,
David Paradise.
Kirby Moyna.
Sam Solars.
Nicole Andrioff.
Jessica Bonniwell.
Dan Reamer.
And Michael Sommerfeld. Invocation.
Is this on? Are we on?
Maybe.
It's hard to tell. So this is my last night to do an invocation, so I'm a little teary-eyed, to be honest with you. For anybody that doesn't know, Tom and I are moving. Nothing personal, but we have too much house here in Montrose. We're moving up to Big Lake at the end of this month. I wanted to share, since this is my last time, just a little more personal than I have in the past. But when God moved us to Montrose, we had never, from Washington, we had never heard of Montrose, knew zero about Montrose. I grew up in Hopkins for 30 years, never even heard of Montrose. And when we were driving from Washington to Minnesota in January of 2018, I can guarantee it wasn't even on the radar for Tom to be on the city council. Last thing in the world, never thought of it, but we want you, I'll speak on Tom's behalf too. It's been a real pleasure to serve all of you and to serve this city. And I just want to say thank you. It's been an honor. I was going to say we were laughing, but it was actually me the other day because Tom, he remembered, it might have been you, Kirby, that told him one time that somebody on Facebook said, who's the guy in the city council that looks like Colonel Sanders? I thought it was very funny. It was kind of anyway, this might sound a little bit strange, but 4 years ago, we felt led, being in Montrose, to go to the four corners of Montrose and to pray for the city. We anointed the ground on the four corners. I've anointed a lot of people in my years, but never have anointed a city. We had communion and we prayed. We stood in the gap on behalf of every person that's ever lived in Montrose, and we asked God's forgiveness for anything that's ever been done on this land that dishonored him. And I wondered today, I was thinking about why did he have us do that? Tom thought it was a little strange, but he came along with it and we did it together. But I believe with all my heart it's because God loves Montrose. He loves the people of Montrose and he loves this city. So I want to exhort you this one last time. You've heard me say it so many times, but I just want to exhort you to always, always, always seek God for direction. He's got all the answers that you need. And we're in rough times now, and there's going to be rough times in the future. And he will always help you if you only ask him. All right, let's pray. Lord, help this city council and every leader in this city to keep their eyes fixed on you always. Help them to remember that you are the source of all wisdom and the source of all the answers that they need. This is your city, Lord. As Tom and I stood at the corners of this city, Lord, we claim this city for you. This is your city, so have your way. And Lord, as you instructed Moses in the Old Testament to tell Aaron to pray a blessing over the nation of Israel, Lord, this last night that I have this opportunity, I pray that same blessing over each person here and over the city of Montrose. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
I will second.
Further discussion? All vote aye. Mr. Solars?
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Aye.
Mr. Paradise?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Mr. Paradise?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Ms. Otto?
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff?
Aye.
Mr. Solars?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Wright County Sheriff's Office. Disappeared on us.
I saw him earlier.
His phone was ringing.
Is there anything from Wright County?
I don't see any patterns or anything in your guys' CFS history or anything, so unless you guys have any questions, really, no.
The only thing I would have is that, are we gonna get, Officer Workla out to talk with the council next month?
Yeah, he's willing to come to either a workshop or a meeting. I can see, kind of further down the agenda, we have to schedule a workshop either for, probably for April when Michael is back, so we can discuss the CIP. And then also have Wright County come to talk about their annual report. So I can ask him if he's available for that.
Okay. Anything for Wright County Sheriff's Office? City Council.
Let's see, I went to Park and Rec, City Council meeting, Celebrate Montrose, and the fish fry.
At city council meeting, fire department meeting, and EDA meeting.
I had a couple personnel meetings, EDA and the LMC training.
Council meeting, couple personnel, and the LMC elected leaders.
I had nothing for last month.
Okay, Fire Department?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet is the February activity report for 2023. Busy month with 30 total calls for us. Just a couple of items to note. On the 14th and 15th of February, we had the standby generator installed way out back here. That went off without a hitch, and now if power goes out, it'll power both of these buildings completely automatically if everything is working correctly. That was paid for by ARPA funds, so no impact to the city budget or anything like that as far as things go. Acknowledgements, I just kind of want to make note of the acknowledgements. Again, Willie Bauerschmidt for his 51 years of service. All who attended our prime rib dinner and purchased gun raffle tickets. Hollywood Sports Complex for catering our dinner. Click Click Boom for sponsoring and helping the gun raffle. Justin Emery, who's a huge supporter of the fire department and the Relief Association. Citizens State Bank for advertising our dinner on their sign. Businesses and individual who donated to our silent auction. And then Vortex Optics, I sent them an email because we found that we had some deficiencies in our binocular supplies. And they donated 4 sets of brand new, good quality binoculars that are now in service in our trucks. So just a quick little email, and all of a sudden I had 4 sets of binoculars. So huge thanks to them. So, any questions on the activity report? Next item is the annual report. So just a couple of things to note. In 2022, we lost no firefighters, which usually doesn't happen. We're kind of a revolving door when it comes to firefighters. Of all our firefighters on, as of December 31st, we had 283 years and 5 months combined service with the Montrose Fire Department. We broke one record in 2022, and that was our total calls in a year with 347. Our previous high was 334 in 2021. We only had a fire loss of $11,000, which is extremely low. Last year, I think we had 882,000. Generally, we're kind of right around that $500,000 for fire loss. That's a huge thanks to the citizens for being fire smart, our prevention efforts, and then just our top-notch response and fire department that we have here. And then we had a lot of mutual aid responses last year. What that tells me is we're trusted by the other fire departments. They don't hesitate to call us for help, and we'll always provide the help to them, because at some point in time, we'll be asking them for the help as well. So that was kind of a big time of our fire department stuff this last year, was helping all our partners and neighbors and stuff. So otherwise, everything else is in the annual report. Those are just kind of the highlights of stuff that I wanted to make note of. Any questions on the annual report? Otherwise, I'd be looking to get that accepted.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2022 annual report from the fire department.
I'll second.
Further discussion, comments or questions? I'll vote aye. Mr. Solars?
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff?
Aye.
Zotto?
Aye.
Paradise?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, Kevin. EDA.
Yeah, we met on February 21st, talked over a few new things. Both the brochure, and talking, had Ms. Foston from Wright County EDP letting us know that they're kind of helping other cities revamp all their brochures, so we kind of put ours on hold in order to see how they're kind of constructing all the other ones, so we can all look a uniform way. So we got them helping us out with that when we move forward. Just recapped that University of Minnesota Extension program, but one of the nice things of having Wright County EDP is we're going to start discussing how we can get moving on working with getting childcare into the area, whether it be working with different organizations or working with some local businesses in town. So get that moving forward.
Questions on EDA?
I just have a quick question. Just kind of looking at this, it says that there was somebody present via Zoom at that meeting? Was that meeting, was that posted, that it was Zoom?
I don't know. Not that I know of.
Okay. Just procedure is that it has to be posted and recognized as a public space.
Do that moving forward.
Yeah, so I can alter the minutes before our next meeting so that it reflects that, and that technically there was no quorum then, so. Okay.
Thanks, Jess. Planning and zoning. So I had requested to have this on here, just would like to, if possible, get a consensus from everybody to have planning and zoning bring up an ordinance to allow chickens in the city of Montrose. I know that we've explored this avenue in the past. So like I said, just looking to see if everybody's on board with them exploring it again.
I am. I think maybe in the past they were trying to reinvent a wheel, and I've seen Delano's ordinance that they have on chickens. I believe it was Delano's, and it was pretty good. So, I mean, if they just look at the other ordinances and maybe get some ideas from that.
I did reach out to a couple of the planning and zoning commission members who are not on board with this. And just being here for the last, how many years? This is brought up every year. I don't think staff is on board with this either. I mean, I personally my neighbors had chickens, so it doesn't matter to me, but it costs a lot of money to do public hearings that nobody attends. And I think last year, when we did the public hearing, I think it was, Sam that had mentioned that nobody attended that public hearing. So it costs a lot of money
Yeah, it
to
was-
do that.
It was attended.
Nobody
but was-
for it.
Yeah, nobody was for it.
Right.
And that's the problem that I have with it too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all for having chickens, but
Nobody comes in
nobody
favor.
comes to the meeting and, in support of the chickens. And it's hard to make that decision for a city when you have people who show up that are obviously against it. And then the people that want the chickens never show up for it and for it. Sure, you can post it on Facebook all you want, but, I want to see people here in front of me explaining to me why they want chickens. So, I mean, that's my thought on it. I know Buffalo is looking to add a chicken ordinance also. I mean, it is going to be something that's going to continue to come up every single year, especially with the price of chicken or eggs now. I mean, it's getting a lot out of hand. I wouldn't mind kicking this back to planning and zoning one more time. And just, if we can get people here for the chickens, against the chickens, I mean, I want to see some more community involvement before we either strike a nail in it and call it good, or, I mean, that's kind of my thought.
I kind of feel the same way as Sam, honestly. Yeah, it doesn't, for me, it's a non-issue. I'm not gonna have chickens in my yard anyways, but if it's something that, it is such a hot topic, and if they don't want to show up and support it, then case closed, in my opinion.
It's one of those things that talking to people from around the state, they're either like, yeah, we love it. We don't care about any farm animals like the one town we had talked to. And other ones are like, absolutely not. We don't even want people to have more than one dog. So it's like, there's extremes on both sides, but I agree. I mean, a lot of times there's people in the community that just reach out individually and ask about it, but, like you said, you and Michelle had brought up, Sam, that nobody shows up when it's a public hearing.
And it's hard to say yes when nobody's here in favor of it, so.
And then who's responsible for enforcement on that? I mean, because we already have a hard time enforcing a lot of our ordinances now.
From what I've heard from Delano is that they've had absolutely no complaints, and they've had theirs in for 2-3 years now. So, I don't know, trying to think of the words I want to use here. I don't know if that would be the biggest concern of it, for me at least. I mean, I know it would be a concern, but not the biggest one that I would have.
I don't know, enforcement of it would be a topic that should be brought up when it's discussed, but. Is that good enough? What do you?
I want a motion. Chuck wants a motion.
Because Chuck is totally against.
Chuck is totally against talking about this again, because,
Yes.
again, we just don't have people attend, They go on Facebook and talk about how much they want chickens, but nobody calls staff, nobody stops in at City Hall, nobody comes to the public hearings, so it's hard to justify that they really want chickens if they're not coming and supporting that.
Exactly.
Chuck wants a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to direct planning and zoning to discuss the creating of an ordinance to allow chickens in the city of Montrose.
I'll second it.
Further discussion. Mr. Solars,
No.
Ms. Andrioff,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
No.
Mr. Paradise,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion passes 3-2.
So we would probably call for a public hearing in April.
Another public hearing
Yeah.
up to $500-600 more dollars.
Yeah.
Good call.
And the date of that would be April 12th.
Park and Rec.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. It's hard to get back after that 3-week stint I did in Florida.
I bet.
I was just looking at the time and thinking, this is the first time I've been up here in front of City Council by, 7:20. Meeting, so what a privilege. Just a couple of things I want to discuss real quick is park and trail plan. We want to identify the park deficiencies and the priorities and come up with a list, decide, maybe meet with Dan at a future meeting and come to our future meetings and what public works can handle and the rest we'll prioritize, on a 1, 3, 5-year plan. You can back to the council for request funds to get things up to speed. Easter egg hunt was voted, was discussed by the Park and Rec Board, and it was decided on 8 April to be held at 10 o'clock. It's to be held here at the community center and at Alliance Park. And I think we also voted to give out additional 3 Easter baskets, so two per age group. I think one for a girl and one for a boy. Just to kind of be politically correct. So Swing says updates. Thank you for approving those funds to get that done. We're hoping to hear back from Graceful Giving on donation to offset some of those costs. Somebody initiated a request for a donation from Graceful Living. We kind of talked about some goals for calendar 2023. Excuse me, my back's going to bother me a little bit. For 2023, those kind of, I asked for each commission member to come up with an idea of what they thought priority for Park and Rec for 2023 ought to be. And these were just some things that we discussed was branch out and to other communities on opportunities where we can utilize their knowledge and plans that they already got existing, like soil conservation, just to give you an idea, or other park recs or whatever. Update signage for the parks. Talked about seating in the regional park, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Update our park brochure. Continue to explore grants. I know that Michelle and another individual put in for the Twins grant. So that, I think, has that been done every year, Michelle, or is that?
No.
So,
We're just,
explore it?
yeah, because the grant is already expired.
Right.
And so we're gonna look at it this summer and see what we can do with it.
So we're going to explore those grants again and discuss which ones we can use more towards the end of the year for the calendar year 2025. So and then look at into sponsorship opportunities for playground equipment and to finalize and button up that park and trail plan. We'd like to get that done and back to the council. Regional parks, we talked about regional park prairie planting. Unfortunately, some of the guests that were supposed to be at our March meeting there were some conflicts of interest, so we got a couple people coming. To our April meeting, Eric Manson from Wright Soil and Water Conservation, and Tyler Thornton from Prairie Restoration. So we're looking at do something with that sunflower seed out there, and somehow, some way, maybe get it plowed under, or whatever we can do. Maybe we'll have to come back, maybe seek some estimates for a tractor, or whatever the heck we need to get that done. And seed it and then reseed it with our prairie grass and flowers, and just kind of make it like a nature preserve type of thing. Changing we also discussed changing back the Park and Rec Board meetings. It'll be effective, and we'll discuss it in April, but for May, because a couple of the commissioners now we go back to the Monday routine versus Thursday routine, because it's no longer like Toby no longer has hockey. So we will, just to give you a heads up, we'll be discussing that in April, and we'll be going back to Mondays. That's all I have, Mayor and Council, any questions?
With changing of the meetings, remember, you're gonna have to change your bylaws and everything.
Yeah, we will do that, yeah.
You're gonna then, is Park and Rec gonna change it twice a year then? So when hockey starts again? Because that doesn't stay very consistent.
Well, I think for now, we'll look at that for this time around to accommodate. I guess my whole thing was trying to keep the team concept of the current park board commissioners, because it really seems to be working together as a team.
Right.
I didn't want to split that team up. So, I guess we'll discuss that come, later on this summer. But for now, I think it's a good idea or suggestion, that we begin to discuss and then present to the council, kind of get approval on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dwayne? Thanks, Dwayne.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet, you'll find on page 50 a suggestion to amend ordinance 2023-02, section 32.03, paragraph G. No longer allowing second meters to be purchased after March 13th today. The reason I am asking for this change was a recommendation in one of our wellhead protection meetings with the Department of Health, MRWA, and some statements from the Department of Natural Resources, mainly to not encourage unnecessary use of water for irrigation. Reminding you that it's not a law to do so, but a recommendation to protect our city's aquifers is being recommended by these groups, and not to encourage unnecessary watering. It's not a law yet. I think it's coming down the line. I'm just trying to get ahead of the game. Everybody in here that has one and currently has one will be grandfathered in to the ordinance that states below. It's just we won't offer second meters to be used. And from that, I'll take any questions on the first part of what I'm asking for.
I don't really have a question, but personally, I would rather wait until the state does something and makes us versus throw this at the residents now. Hopefully, at least if the state were to make a law about it, then we would know about it ahead of time, I hope, to the point of they'd have hearings and they talk at the Capitol, and I think there's probably a few people that would want to get a second water meter, and I know that we've advertised it for years. I also think that that's unfair if the state does that, to ask people to pay extra fees for wastewater and sewer when people don't use that to water their lawn. And I get that they're looking at, aquifer levels and all of that, but I just, personally, I don't think that they necessarily have the best interest of all of the citizens of the state really in mind when they talk about that stuff. But
I encourage any of the council members to come to any of these wellhead protection plan meetings and listen to these groups. This is, what's more important, your grass or the water you drink? I mean, that's pretty much what they're telling you.
So,
I'm just trying to get ahead of the game here because I see it coming down the line. But the other thing is they told me that we should not be, how you want to put it, encouraging it. And by selling second water meters and taking off the sewer rates, we are encouraging them to irrigate. So, I mean, it's not a law yet, and that's why it's in front of council motion. I mean, that's it. I mean, and then the second part where you'll see coming is, we'll talk about that, but the other reason why I'm asking for it now is most of our developments are full. So the houses that are here, they've had the opportunity to buy these second meters at this point. This is before any new developers come in and you get 60, 70 houses being built. The citizens have had time in the last 10 years to buy these. I'm assuming if they wanted one, they would have done it by now. That's all I gotta say, and ultimately, it's your council decision.
So is there other cities that are dealing with this as well?
I didn't look into it, I'm just going by the group meeting that we've had multiple times.
So I've talked to a couple different cities, and the response I got was, we actually encourage our residents to get a second meter. I think, I understand what you're trying to accomplish here, so don't get me wrong on this. I think right now, I think this is kind of an overreach by them at this point to make this recommendation. I also agree that this should be something that we should wait to see if it does become a law. I think, I mean, as a resident myself, I understand the limiting the use of water, but to me, this is basically saying, yeah, I know you pay your taxes here and you pay your water, but don't want you to really water your grass.
This ain't saying they can't put in irrigation.
Yeah, I
This
know.
ain't saying they can't water their lawns.
Yeah, I get
This
it.
is saying that they're gonna get charged extremely high if they do.
I just,
I mean, that's,
I-
I'm just going by what was in these meetings and what I was pretty much asked to ask for. But like you said, it's not a law yet, and I understand. Myself, I built 10 years ago, I wanted my yard perfect, and it was for about 4 years. And then I just gave up because their water, where I live, it skyrocketed, so.
but I don't want to discourage that. I mean, I think, you have some people obviously who don't care about their grass.
Right.
But then there are some who take very good care of their grass.
And I would say if they do, they already have the second meter, correct? I mean, that's what I'm saying, everybody's had an opportunity at this point to get it in, our developments are full.
Right, but let's say you've got, a couple that's gonna purchase here within the next couple of years and they don't have one. And, they're moving from an apartment and all they've ever wanted was some nice green grass for their kids to play in. And now we're just gonna say, yeah. I think at this point, I don't think we should move forward with this. I think we should wait to see what the state does. And we all know that the stuff coming out of St. Paul lately has been garbage, but at this point, I think that's what we need to do.
How many second meters do you think are out there right now in town?
Couple hundred, 200 to 250, somewhere in there. And before we move any further, if you guys vote the first one down, we don't even need to talk about the second one. Because the second one is not allowing developers to put irrigations in for multiple houses, for the big irrigation systems. So, just to give you a warning, it's,
That'll come down to.
in not even 2 weeks, a developer in this town last year used 1 million gallons on watering sod.
So if they don't have that in the what do you want them to do?
They will water, I mean, each individual homeowner would have to water on their own. Or just plant instead of sodding.
I know, like Sam said, we checked around and actually the city of Buffalo, encourages the second meter, as does the city of Waverly. And the city of Buffalo, gives like a 30 to 60 day, like water extension for new homes. So they kind of waive, for watering of sod.
I'm more looking at it at what's underground, what you guys aren't seeing, than what's on top of the ground and grass here. I see it coming. I just want you guys to be aware that it's coming.
So,
I mean, I know it's gonna make some people mad, no doubt about it. But in the long run, for longevity of your water system, sooner or later, you're gonna have to do it.
so can we get something out to the residents? Because I mean, I did put this on social media, but that only reaches a few, so that they can understand why we might want to do this. You know, maybe in the next newsletter or something. They're not just saying, oh, it's government running, you know, telling us what to do, but
Well,
maybe get
that's
a better
kinda what we
understanding.
do though, right?
Yeah, but we want them to understand
I
why we do
understand
it, not
that,
just that we do
but,
it.
I mean, we can, I mean, I don't know what exactly you want me to write in there. Yeah, a link
I
to
mean-
a 25-minute Netflix special, that could be a good one.
That would be entertaining.
Well, the water crisis.
Yeah, but if you're gonna shoot it down and to continue to sell them, I don't need to put it out there. I mean, they're gonna disregard it anyway. So. Or we can give them a heads up that it might be coming down the line.
Right.
Now, that's not saying the people with the second meters gotta rip them out and put them away. They're grandfathered in, and we ain't expecting that to happen, but, yeah. I'm just saying it's coming. I could see in these wellhead protection plan meetings that it's a matter of time.
Yeah, so I think it would be important to kind of get something out, you know, to inform the residents on as to what's,
That we're trying to push the non-selling of second meters because we're trying
Well,
to save
just
our
saying-
aquifers.
you're
Okay.
trying to, you know, protect the equipment and you know, what the outcome and
Do any of you guys want to attend our wellhead protection plan meetings next month?
when is it?
I'll tell you. I'll send an email out, or it might even be this week. No. So
Send an email on it. We know when it is.
I'm just bringing it up there. I was kind of asked to do it, so I did it.
March
Your guys' vote.
March 29th at 10 a.m.
That's during the day.
After
Yeah,
the
the
meeting.
the state agencies, yeah.
State agencies, correct.
Because if they take long enough, then they get to have their lunch after the meeting, and then by the time they get back to the office, they get to go home, so.
It isn't kind of like the manganese thing. They warned us in 2013 that it's coming. 2015, council voted no to build the plant. And then we were answering phones in 2020, like, it was crazy. So I'm telling you, it's coming. It's coming. They're not gonna allow irrigation pretty quick.
I just would preferably like to be able to blame somebody else for it, than have to take the blame to say that we're not allowing second meters. Hey, complain to the majority party in the
And I
state
completely
legislature.
understand that.
I get that, and I'm with it, but at the same sense, I don't want us to fall into a trap like we did back in 2013. You know, where we need to get ahead of something, and then it's too late by the time we say no to it. And
Well, it's never too late. It's just saying, I also want to be able to come back to this March 13th, 2023 meeting and say, hey, I asked you 3 years ago to do this. So, I mean, that's what it's about.
I mean,
I'm just relaying the message I'm getting from Department of Health, DNR, Department of Natural Resources is what runs your wells. DNR's been saying it for a while, but they're not making it a law yet, but they're gonna. I could bet probably in 5 to 10 years. So,
So, like I said, I put it out on social media, and people are wondering why. So, if we can just give some kind of a little thing from Public Works, a little, you know, memo or something, just a small overview, and then bring it back. Once, you know, you don't want to just spring something on them and go, oh, well, guess what? As of 7 o'clock on March 13th, you can't have this anymore.
it's,
We need to say
can't
why.
purchase them anymore. It's not that they can't have it if they already have it.
Right, but then you're gonna turn around and
Or
say,
if you guys want to, you can extend it past March 13th. You can do it beginning of next year. Do it, January 2024. I mean, that date is not set in stone, but
I think that that's a good solution to the concerns here, is to extend out that date so that we can still do the right thing of getting notification to residents of what's coming forth. Give them the time to, if they want to go ahead and purchase that second meter, they can, but also the deadline is now going to be this rather than deadline is tonight after we say it is. So I think that is a good solution to this issue.
Do that.
With that said, I don't think it needs to be next year. I think it can be a few months from now, 60, 90 days.
Well, if we want to wait till the summer
I was gonna say,
newsletter,
let 'em
just
get
throw it
through
in
summer.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We can try and educate people throughout the spring and summer, and then maybe bring something either in the fall or winter back to council to consider. You guys agreeable to that?
Yep.
Yeah, no.
At least revisit it, not have
Yeah,
another start date.
just to consider it again. Talk about it again.
You like to, what, table
Table it?
this until fall? Or do you just want it listed as tabled, but it'll go on the minutes every month?
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I would say let's deny it for now, and then we'll bring it back. Or you can just take no action.
But yeah, that'd be the same as denying it, right?
Well, I guess you guys could deny part one and we can go on to part two and talk about that too. I mean, it's in the packets on the agenda. So vote no on part one and
It's all the same.
it is
Yeah,
all
it's
the
all,
same.
it's all one
All the
ordinance.
same thing.
Well, part two is about large irrigation systems and mainly that's what they were, one of the big things they were worried about is the large irrigations. Your farmers are gonna get precedent of using aquifers for irrigation over the homeowner who's growing grass. And that's gonna come down the line. So, I mean, you could still pass two where developers can't put in large irrigation systems. And the homeowner can still put in the second meter and water his or her own grass. Or you can just revisit it all again, it's up to you guys.
I say we revisit at a later date.
Yeah.
Is there a motion on ordinance 2023-02? Is there a motion on ordinance 2023-02? Third final time, is there a motion on ordinance 2023-02? There is no motion on ordinance 2023-02. So that makes the next part mute, or do we need to?
Yeah, I would say it null and voids the next part, because that's just a authorizing summary publication of the ordinance, so.
Okay. Do you have any other updates, or, I know it's
No.
not listed on there, but,
No updates. If you guys have any other questions for Public Works, I can take that at this time.
Dan, I have a question.
Yep,
The quick connect that was put in the kitchen,
yep,
how can we get it to allow us to use more than one appliance at?
you can't.
We can't put in 3 connects?
One in, switch in and out. Because that service is meant for so many appliances. So it's either the oven or the deep fryer, not both at the same time.
We can't add a connect to it?
You would have to add more plumbing and probably a different, gas regulator, but, I mean, you can if you wanna spend some more money.
Well, because, I mean, since that's the only location that we do anything in,
But mind you, if you're gonna use that oven, that hood needs to be extended also. So that's the whole reason why the quick connect got put in, so you can switch them in and out, because it's not the plumbing or that's gonna cost you. It's that hood that's gonna cost you money.
Right, but for the event that we just did, we couldn't even use the fryer and the burners. And so if we move the oven
Why couldn't you
underneath,
use the fryers and the burners?
because there's only one connect. So if we move the
What?
oven even underneath, I have no idea, I know nothing about it. I was just told
No,
to ask.
you should have been able to use the stove and the fryer at the same time. You mean the actual stove with the burners on it?
Yep,
They probably didn't have the gas on. I mean, that's hooked up.
no, we did. But so if we were to move the oven underneath the hood and still use the fryer,
You
we
gotta
can't do
extend the
that.
hood, there's not enough room. Otherwise, you're taking the oven or the stove, or the original oven or stove out.
Okay,
Everything's gotta fit underneath that hood. And also, once you start touching that hood, there needs to be a sprinkler system installed.
right, right.
Because right now, it's kind of grandfathered in. So when you talk about adding a little piece of equipment, you're gonna be spending a lot of money.
But also with that, both the oven and the flat top, I believe those are both in the Lions contract as being available. So there's also that, no tampering with those.
So then how could we make that area more, more,
Spend money. Bigger hood.
okay,
But they should have been able to use the stove, not the roller stove, the permanent stove. They should have been able to use that and the fryer at the same time. They should have.
yeah, we did.
Okay. You cannot use the new stove you got donated in the fryer at the same time.
Correct.
That was your question, right?
We can use them.
Yeah, because we made it, because those are, first of all, they're only two things on wheels. The other two are permanent legs, so you're gonna be dragging them in and out from underneath the hood. So we made those interchangeable, and everything fits underneath that hood that's being used at that point.
Okay,
Get what I'm saying?
yep,
So, I mean, you could do whatever you want, it's just spending money.
right,
So we did it as cheap as, and legal as possible when you got that stove donated. And that still cost quite a bit of money to do what we did,
okay.
so,
I was just told to ask.
yeah,
Thank you.
you bet.
Anything else?
Questions?
Anything else for Dan? Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
Old business, extend deadline for preserve request for proposal.
Mayor and council, the deadline that has been published for the RFP for the preserve is March 31st, which is coming up. We have not had any submissions as of yet. I think the church group is still working on theirs. I haven't heard from them lately. But it might be beneficial to extend by 30 or 60 days here.
I'd be okay with 90.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you guys' discretion allows, so.
Could we then get it out there again to whoever we're gonna advertise it through?
Yeah, we can recirculate, republish. Try and get it out. Yeah. You can try again with Bright County Economic Development, see if they can blast it out again and see if it catches anybody this time. Just try and get it out there one more time.
Wonder if there's a website to post stuff like that. I'd have to ask.
I know there's some like builders connection type things,
Yeah.
but you have to be like, have a membership and be like a builder, basically.
Yeah,
I
or
tried to
pay a
look at some
fee.
of them that Bolton and Mink were referring me to, and I couldn't figure it out, so I can ask them tomorrow, we have a meeting, if they have any suggestions for how to get stuff on those sites. Motion to extend that since the deadline published is the 31st.
I'll make a motion to extend the deadline for the preserve request for proposal for an additional 90 days, extended to July 1st of 2023.
I will second.
I think that's 90 days.
I think so.
Further discussion? Ms. Andrioff?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Aye.
Mr. Paradise?
Aye.
Mr. Solars?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion passes 5-0 to extend the deadline. New business, schedule workshop for city council.
Mayor and council, just want to get a date on the books for a workshop. I know we had talked about March 27th, and if we want to talk about the CIP, Michael's on vacation that week. So I was going to move something into April. And keep in mind, we don't have to be on a certain day because we can do it at City Hall, and it can be any day. So whenever you guys are available. We can keep it to Mondays if you want. The 10th is the council meeting. That would leave the 17th or 24th. If it's a Monday.
Let's see.
I'd be fine with keeping it on the last Monday, 24th.
Okay.
I will be gone on the 24th.
17th?
17th works for me.
17th?
17th works for me.
Okay. Yay.
Easy peasy.
So that'll be April 17th at 4 PM, and then I'll try to get Lieutenant Workle at that meeting as well to go over the annual report with you guys.
So if he's gonna be there, do we wanna do it up there or here?
We can still do it there. I mean, he can, yeah, I don't think it'll be too many people or anything. It's just him. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, good. Or I can ask him if he's available for the April 10th meeting. He just wasn't available tonight, so.
Either or.
Okay.
Elected officials' rules and procedures and code of conduct. Discussion. I noticed some things in here as well, because we use acting mayor instead of mayor pro tem. That just has to be changed. And, like emergency meetings, those in the past have always required only 2, not 3, right? 2. Yeah, that's what I thought.
We'll change 2, 3 to 2.
And this-
Yeah,
Sorry. I think at one point, didn't we have the official spokesperson, emergency management for issues in the city?
For things, emergency related, but I believe this document is going for non-emergency related, statements. Water, earth, magnesium, water. I ain't gonna say anything but it. If somebody wants to say something, more power to you. I think that's what this one's more related to. The emergency operations plan for the city and the personnel policy would say that emergency has the ability to make meetings with the city administrator on board, stuff like that.
So should we clarify that in here, you think, or? Are you looking to approve this tonight, Kirby?
I was kind of looking for more discussion so that we can refine it and kind of keep moving on with some of this stuff. I think it'd be, I always thought we had something like this. I remember reading something once upon a time, but I couldn't find it again. And then discovering that there's a lot of other cities that have something like this to make sure that when you have, you know, like in the future and newer people kind of come on board and everything, that so on and so forth, know kind of what's going on. But you were talking about the emergency meetings, right? With Kevin that you're talking about?
Yeah, because back when we had, you know, like, the gas.
He's talking about the council, section 6.4, council conduct with the media.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Like
I-
scrambling through it,
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to figure out what you're looking at.
I'm looking at section 2.
That's what I was looking at too, like,
Page 13,
on section
section A,
2.
or letter A.
Thank you.
Basically, it's saying the mayor is the designated representative of the council to present and speak on the official city position. On the emergency management side, I'm not gonna make a statement on the position of the city, I'm gonna make a statement on the emergency incident at hand. And then if the position is opposite of my saying, then I guess I could be disciplined or, told naughty, but my stuff is in the moment type thing, this is kind of, hey, you have a little bit of time to prepare for your statements, so let's, dress you up, slick your hair back, and let's give you something to read specifically. I think it's kind of where this is coming from.
Yeah, I mean, and, like I said, a lot of this stuff can be changed. It's up for kind of discussion on how all this goes. We took a lot of this cookie cuttered from other cities, and mostly one city in specific, but won't name them. So, I mean, we could name anybody or everybody as official spokespersons, but I'd like to try to see Kevin slick his hair back.
I would like to see that too, actually. And overall, I think it's a pretty solid code of conduct. Did talk to some other cities at the elected leaders, and, they kind of have something similar in place. And I think, going forward for many, many years down the road, I think it's a good code for newly elected officials to kind of maintain.
One of the things too that I liked in here that we haven't run into this issue years, but that there's an adjournment time of 10 o'clock so that we're not dragging everybody here till 11, 11:30. That was years ago that stuff would happen, but I could only imagine.
Yeah.
One other thing I would note with it, and you guys kind of already talked about this, the emergency meetings. That needs to be worded a little bit differently, but I don't know how. Because if we have to have an emergency meeting, we have to have an emergency meeting. In the emergency management side of things, maybe just a disclaimer in there saying this does not pertain to emergency incident type things. Because if we lose power and a tornado goes through, I'm not gonna wait for 4 hours to have a meeting with you guys.
Right, and I think the intent of this is more like if we have something urgent that happens in the city, there's a nearby town that's gone through a couple incidents in the last week or so that I think would be a situation that would fit an emergency meeting of how you're going to handle that immediately going forward. But yeah, I mean, we can add that in there too of does not include
Like a line disclaimer, this does not
affect the emergency management.
an emergency response incident where the emergency action plan is put into place or something.
Do we want to maybe do this at a workshop, kind of go over it a little bit more? Since we are tweaking some of it?
We could put that on the April one.
Yeah, that sounds good.
What else do we have on that April one too? CIP, Workala, this.
If I knew how to work an iPhone, it might be easier. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So I guess if there's suggested changes or things that we need more clarification on, to send them to Jess, and then we can go over that on that April 17th meeting. I was just asking, because I wanted to make sure we weren't going too long on that, where we show up for a couple, 2, 3 things and
There
we're
for
there.
6 hours.
I was gonna say 3, but not 6.
Workshop agendas, the Wright County annual report, the CIP, some code enforcement issues that we have discussed lately. And then we can add, the code of conduct, because I'd like to like read through that with everybody.
Yep. Perfect. Anything else right now on that? No? Okay. Community center HVAC quotes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last October, the smaller AC unit out here that supplies air conditioning for the hallway, the office and the fire department, and pretty much the middle section of the community center, threw a fan blade which destroyed the rest of the unit internals, so it has to be replaced. It's old. It would probably be due for replacement anyway. We got quotes from a few vendors, the second of whom did take a look in the janitor closet and also recommended the replacement of the furnace, which is corroded and could definitely be, from the amount of corrosion in it and the age is the same of the unit that failed, recommended that be replaced as well. So 2 of the quotes have both on it, and I guess city staff would recommend going with NACE HVAC for both units at $8,584.60. That is page 75.
The fan breaking, we know that was just a natural cause of wearing out, right?
Yeah, it's an old,
Somebody didn't tamper with it or throw stuff in it?
it doesn't appear so.
Okay.
That it was still caged at the time, not that that completely rules out tampering.
I just wanted to make sure, I didn't know if there'd be, if it was tampered with, if there's insurance side of things that could help, but, yeah.
I don't remember what the estimate on how old that unit was, 15 years,
Oh, I'm sure.
something like
Unit
that?
would have
Yeah.
been installed with the building back in 95.
Okay, so lots of years.
It lived a good life.
So a couple of years.
It was asking for it. So then that furnace as well is the same age.
With this replacement that's needed, and if we do move forward with that, and obviously with the generator out there, do we have a plan to enclose that area so that we do not have expensive equipment being potentially destroyed?
Beat me to my question.
Working on quotes here starting tomorrow for a nice fenced-in area back there. Probably not gonna be cheap. I'm hoping to use some more of the ARPA money for that, good use for it. And then talking with some of the staff at some point too, possibly using the ARPA money for the replacement of the furnace and the AC unit. It fits within the guidelines for that ARPA money, and it'd be putting it to good use, and then the maintenance budget from the community center could be used on some other much needed maintenance items.
Like some craters in the floor?
Yeah, there's just a couple of little holes. Because this is our emergency backup operations center, and it's also a shelter facility. If something were to go wrong, we would open it up for the community. And on hot days, you're gonna want it cool, and cold days, you're gonna want it a little bit more.
So you said option 2 was the staff recommendation?
Option 2 from The bid on, there's 3 bids, but the bid on page 75 from
Yep.
Nace HVAC, yes. That would be,
Is that because of the 20-year heat exchanger?
that is because that one came in approximately $1,300 lower than the next most similar option. But his does include, the only thing that bid doesn't have that the bid from Total Comfort has is a smaller labor warranty. It's still got a warranty for all the equipment that's identical, but I would hope, given the track record of our previous unit lasting decades, that we wouldn't be calling upon too much labor in that 5-year range, but.
You said a large portion of this will come out of the ARPA money?
I think we can get it all out of the ARPA money. If city staff is in line with that.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept one of the proposals?
I'll make a motion to approve the $8,584.60 for the HVAC system for community center.
Second. Further discussion? I'll vote aye. Mr. Paradise?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Aye.
Mr. Solars?
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0 to accept option 2 for $85,84.60. Cleanup day.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christie wanted me to talk about a couple of cleanup day items because that is coming up on May 6th. Should be from 8 to noon on that day. I believe we're having it at City Hall again. Yeah. I believe also we budgeted for another 2 free items. Michael, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So that would be the first item, is to approve the 2 free items once again for cleanup day. And then the second one is just if we're still gonna do the free item pickup, and if we're gonna change the fees for that. Currently, I think it's $5 per item. Don't quote me on that.
That sounds about right. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think it's $10 total.
personally, if I don't want to bring something up here, I'm probably willing to pay $20 to have somebody else pick it up. That's my opinion. But is there a recommendation to increase it, or the just general discussion?
Yeah, just general discussion about going forward here. Since we are keeping or if we're gonna keep the 2 free items, and then if we wanna keep the pickup charges the same at $5 each. For up to 2 items.
Dan, with the new parking lot, is that gonna be too much with all of this?
Yeah, I
Don't
don't
have a
have
lot of
any
choice, yeah.
choice of where
Otherwise,
else
it's
to
gonna be
go with it.
on brand new, over by Carver Field. It's
Carver
brand
Field
new.
worked last year because it was under construction, but it's gonna have new tar on it, so I was always thinking wastewater plant, but if it rains out,
It's gonna be a mud pit.
if it's a rain day, there's no way that'll work. Plus, the spillover onto Highway 25,
Be bad.
we can't leave them sitting on Highway 25 backed up for cleanup day.
Well,
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're gonna be as careful as we possibly can in the City Hall parking lot, but that's the best option at this point. Me and
did it
Christie
work
sat
better
down
at Carver Field?
It did.
I know that
It
it'll
was
be,
gravel road. I mean, it was gravel.
I know that it'll be new asphalt, but I mean, the streets are used to, the traffic and that type of stuff versus the parking lot. I mean, instead of just that one road that's new tar, you'd have this road and the new parking lot that's all new tar.
Well, the other thing is we set the dumpsters on the roads over there last year. Those roads are way, way skinnier now with sidewalks and curbs put in on them. It's just not gonna work. The roads were widened and were gravel, and thank God it didn't rain, but was pretty much down to clay. I mean, it worked well. We shipped them through and it went great. But where would we set dumpsters over there?
The parking lot.
Yeah, that brown
But we
parking lot.
used that parking lot for the appliance in Carl's last year. That's who was in there.
Could we use the parking lot over by the soccer fields, regional?
This is how do you turn them around?
That'd
I'm
be,
worried about turning around and then traffic also.
I mean, we
backing up.
can, I mean, anything's
I'm just-
possible.
Yeah,
We could go wherever you guys wanna go with it.
People would have to line up like down Aspen and then onto Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
And
if we're all concerned about ruining all the new stuff, I mean,
Unfortunately, I mean, I think it's our best option with not knowing the weather, cause we've had cleanup days in pouring rain.
cold and.
Yeah. So the plant is not gonna work unless you guys will allow me to tar the entire thing, which I want done anyway, but it's a mud hole down there right now, and if it rains, so we thought about this for a while. We've had discussion. I've even had discussion with Public Works guys, and it's the best spot. Kick them in one side, kick them out to County Road 12. Hopefully, we don't damage the parking lot. But I'd rather damage the parking lot than a new curb or a new sidewalk. But it can always be changed, wherever you guys want it. The discussion here is, you know, the pickup fee is $5 per item. With gas prices and everything going up, I would think about kicking that up a little bit. Just a thought. It does take the guys a while to do this, so
With,
want to recoup costs, I would
I mean,
think
when
anywhere.
they pick up almost the whole week. I mean, it's,
They pick up for almost 2 weeks
yeah, I mean,
straight.
it's like.
I mean, not
nonstop.
every hour, all day long. It's just, oh, we got a new couple addresses today. We got a couple new addresses today. We got a couple new ones today. So we end up filling last year 2 full dumpsters at the plant with just pickups. Which is fine, then they're not there on cleanup day. Great. But,
one of the things too that we could think about, and this is just an outside idea, instead of when we say put them out on Monday, say put them out on Friday, because you might get free help picking them up from people in town that are gonna go, hey, I want a new couch for my,
yeah, I mean, if you put $5 on it, someone will take it. If you put free on it, they'll leave it sit. That's just the way the world works. The only thing I'm asking for is maybe you might want to think about the pickup fee, increasing it a little bit. I'm not saying doubling it, I'm saying like $7 an item. I mean, we use the 1 ton, the flatbed trailer, 2 guys.
what are the thoughts on the pickup fee?
I mean, I think that if I had 2 items and it's gonna pick up, I'd pay $20, like you said.
Well, that's doubling it then, that'd be
No, I know,
$10 an
that's what I'm
item.
saying, like, if all I had to do is bring it to the edge of my driveway, $20 is worth it.
Yeah, we are, and you could call around, one of the only towns that does this. For sure. And the 2 free items.
right. So with Republic now, did we have them last year?
Yes.
Republic? Did their prices go up at all for like tires and all that kind of stuff? Are we looking
Tire-
at that? too?
I just asked Christy to look into some of that because Carl's actually does the tires and sometimes they do raise their prices. I also asked her to look into the recycler because those are the 2 that usually raise the prices the most. Randy's would probably be like our contract price, just in bulk. So, yeah.
Anything on, pickup fee, anything else?
How about
Opinions?
$7.50? It's kind of halfway between the 5 and the 10 there.
A lot of change to
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. That's why I like the even set number of $10.
Yeah, I mean,
No change.
if you say 7, now you're like.
Now you gotta find
14.
$3, you know, the $10, it's there.
I mean,
Yeah,
Keeps it even.
I like it.
not a bad idea.
Yeah. Gives you a nice little discount for that second item.
Yeah.
Well, the funny part is you'll go there for 2 couches and there'll be TVs shoved in the couches.
Oh, that's an idea.
Don't give anybody ideas.
Well, I don't think I need to give them ideas. It happens.
Does that need a motion, or is that just,
So I think I'd like one just for the 2 free items and if we're gonna raise the price here for the pickup. So,
I'm still
have
fully on
traction.
board with the 2 free items. And I liked April's idea, 10 for 1, 15 for 2.
Is that a motion?
that's a, I was wondering if that's.
I thought we were still discussing, but okay.
Yeah, no, we can still discuss.
Oh, well, that's what I feel anyways.
So. is that-
Okay, I'll make the motion that Nicole just recommended.
I'll second.
Further discussion. 2 free items, and like April's idea, 10 for 1, 15 for 2 for pickup. That's the motion on the floor.
Sounds great to me.
Okay, Mr. Solars.
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff?
I,
I'll vote aye. Mr. Paradise?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, and it looks like they just walked in, Wright County Public Health. It's amazing timing.
We perfectly timed that out.
Just waited outside till you knew yeah.
Just make sure the microphone part's just flipped up there on the top of it.
The little button on top.
There we go. All right. Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Staff, thank you for having us. My name is Gavin Woodland. I am with Wright County Public Health, and my colleague Patty and I are here to share some information about radon. So this is actually a message for Montrose City Council as well as residents in attendance and the public of Montrose. So feel free to relay and share. So thank you again for your time and accommodation. And Jessica, thank you for the communication and setting this up for us. Really do appreciate it. But we want to talk about radon gas. So for those that aren't aware, radon is actually a radioactive gas that comes from the decay of radioactive earth metals in our soil. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that it's always going to be around. We can't fully eliminate exposure to, but what we can do is try and mitigate exposure to prevent public health concerns and risks down the road. So the reason why it's a public health concern is that radon gas is actually the second leading cause of lung cancer behind smoking. So if you're not a smoker, it's going to be your leading cause of lung cancer. Now, that's not a fear tactic. That's not a scare mechanism. We just want residents to be aware, because if we can mitigate exposure and reduce exposure, we would love to prevent, any sort of exposure risk to lung cancer, being that lung cancer does have the highest mortality rate of diagnosed cancers. So, but I equate it similarly to smoking. You're not going to get lung cancer from one day of radon exposure. Similarly to if you smoke cigarettes for one day, you're likely not going to get lung cancer from that. It's a long-term exposure. So we want to try and get ahead of it, be proactive, see what the radon gas is in our homes. Now, the reason why we're trying to measure radon gas in our homes, especially this time of year, is because it's not dissipating through the air like most natural gases do when they're not covered under frozen ground, and this year 6 feet of snow. So typically we're going to see those radon levels in Minnesota homes 25 to 40% lower in spring and summer months, because it can naturally escape through the air. But we also, in Wright County in particular, we have a unique setup to where not only are we in Minnesota, to where our ground is frozen, but we have a lot of older homes, farm homes that have been around for decades and even 100 years that were quality built and people still reside in. And those older homes, it's kind of a catch-22. Those older homes were built to breathe, so they really help with moisture control, but natural gases can seep in a lot easier because of that breathability. Whereas your newer builds, they're sealed up pretty tight, so gases have a more difficult time getting in, but they're going to deal with more moisture issues. So it's kind of that flip or flop. So unfortunately, you do one and kind of predisposes you to the other. That's why we want all property types to be testing for that radon gas. So With the radon test itself, if you look at the back of the hard brochure we gave you, I'll kind of get into the actual test kits themselves, but if you look at the hard brochure, there's kind of a different chart of what your radon gas falls into after you test. So we're always going to recommend more than one test just because we don't want residents to go and have mitigation system installed or an air exchanger put in if it was a fluky test or if the results maybe weren't valid. We don't want residents spending money if we don't have valid results. We want to make sure that everything's foolproof. But there's basically 3 different ranges you can fall into for your test results. So if you're in that 0 to 2 range, we're not really super concerned. It's a pretty safe exposure level. Really, we just want to make sure we're testing every few years to stay on top of it. But mitigation isn't really necessary if you're in that range. If you're in that 2 to 4, which Montrose is at 3.4 in the regions of Wright County, that's kind of that borderline. Well, maybe it's not the highest risk level, but if you're going to be in the home for a long period of time, maybe look at having some sort of mitigation set up, or make sure we're testing more frequently just to see if the levels are being maintained or if they're slowly increasing. That 4.0 and higher mark is usually the mark where we want to have some sort of mitigation system put in because the EPA equates that to about 8 cigarettes a day. Now, again, if you do have elevated radon, it's not going to come from one day of exposure. It's going to come from long-term exposure. So we want residents to be aware, especially if you have families that maybe or new residents that just moved into a property. It'd be good to look at it now if they plan on being in it for a long period of time to try and mitigate that exposure risk. So those are kind of the 3 different ranges that we fall into. Wright County as a whole, if you look on one of the flyers, you'll see a little picture of Minnesota. Wright County as a whole actually doesn't fall into the highest region of the state. The southwest corner has a really high uranium content, which as a result, they have a high radium content, and as a result, a high radon gas content. So the southwest corner is the most elevated region of the state, but Minnesota as a whole has a 3 times higher average than the national average just because of, like I said, our climate with the fact that we have several months of the year where natural gases can't escape. But then 2, Minnesota has a unique geology like a lot of the northern Midwest regions in that we have a lot of metal in our soil. Think about the Iron Range or think about the mining, that's a big part of our history. We have a unique geology component that has more of those metals in our soil than other regions of the country. So that's why we're promoting radon testing. Now again, a lot of us might have heard of radon testing maybe when we first purchased a home or a part of a real estate transaction and never thought of it 5, 10, 15, 20 years go by. But the problem is, and that we want to kind of remind residents of, is that radon gas is always decaying from that radium. So it's not a one and done type situation. So if those of my chemistry buffs out there, we think about metals and their half-life, how long it takes them to decay. So uranium is the kind of radioactive metal most of us have heard of with plutonium and radioactive stuff. But radium decays into radium, and then that radium metal decays into that radon gas. But that radium decays in years, 2 to 6 years, depending on what you look at, whereas that uranium takes hundreds of years. So if you have these different decay rates, if they're decaying a lot quicker, we're constantly getting more radon gas exposure. So that's why we want to try and have everyone testing every 2 to 5 years, just to make sure that levels are either maintaining or that their systems are working properly, or maybe if they did some sealing to try and shore up the foundation, to make sure all that's working properly and that your exposure isn't increasing. So I'll probably be bothering you again next winter talking about radon again, so just be forewarned for that. So we just want to remind residents that this should be a frequent thing, not just a one and done. And especially the last couple of years with the real estate transaction boom and the kind of crazy housing market we had, we saw a lot of home buyers waive the radon test to expedite their offer and acceptance by the seller. So it's not required as a part of a real estate transaction. Disclosure of radon risks is, but the actual test itself is not. So it used to be kind of just a standard of every real estate transaction, but it got waived, and so we saw a decrease in testing the last few years because a big market of that radon testing comes from real estate transactions. So even new builds, we want to try and make sure that, or new residents, we want to make sure that they're still testing. Now, I'll kind of walk through what a mitigation system looks like, then I'll just briefly share where we can get the kits, and then I'd be more than happy to answer questions and not take up more of your evening. So with the mitigation, so if you do a test and it comes back elevated, it's basically a system that's put in to try and disperse that radon gas that's underneath your slab out of your home as quickly as possible. So they either go through the attic. If your garage is attached, they'll go through a garage. Sometimes they have to go through the outside of the house, but typically they want to keep the piping internal and then it's going to have to go out the house eventually, but they don't want to have a lot of piping outside just because if there is any moisture accumulation, it can freeze up in the winter, then you run into some issues there. So if you do have to have it outside, a lot of times they'll have a heating coil put in to keep the ice from building up, and you just run it in the winter, that sort of thing. But basically, they bore a hole into your foundation, they seal off that pipe that gets put into your foundation, it's just PVC pipe, and then that's how they funnel it out. So new builds, anything after 2009, have that piping already put in place. So they're just relying on active gas flow to try and disperse that radon gas. But with the new builds, they're equipped for the fan. So if you look at a new build, 9 times out of 10, it's in their attic wherever that radon passive system exits the home, there's going to be an outlet there to have an exhaust fan put in. So an exhaust fan activates the system. Basically, it expedites the rate that gas is being pulled out. So even new builds, even if they have the passive system put in, we really want to recommend testing to make sure the passive system, one, if that's enough, then awesome. Then you're just keeping an eye on it, make sure it's working. But if it's not, you're already equipped to have the active system activated. You just need a fan put in. Whereas other properties that don't have the piping put in, they're going to have more labor involved. So with the mitigation systems, pre-COVID, I think the last estimate we have is 2019. The average system cost was about $1,500. This was pre-inflation, pre-parts of everything costing more expensive. So I don't have a good estimate for you now. Unfortunately, I've seen as low as $750. Sorry, I've seen as low as $750. I've seen as high as $3,000. So it just kind of depends on the structure of your home, how much piping is needed, how big the fan needs to be, that sort of thing. But we do have financial assistance through the state and through federal programs like HUD, EPA, Department of Agriculture, if residents need that assistance because it is identified as a public health concern. So if you do have any residents that do a test, comes back elevated, but they're worried about the cost of a mitigation system, we have some availability to help with that. So there's 3 different ways you can get a test kit. So we recommend always starting with the short-term test kit. So we sell ours at the Government Center, Front Desk of Health and Human Services, for discounted for residents for $5. And we actually even brought some order forms as well, if you'd like us to leave those here. These order forms are also online on our public health website. So if residents can't make it out to the government center, they can just simply mail in a check or put $5 in an envelope and just label radon kit and then mail it out to us, and we'll mail them a kit. So that works too. You can go online to mn.radon.com. This is in your packet, so you don't need to worry about remembering that. And you can order it through the state. It's $12.95, so it's the same exact kit, just a little more expensive through the state. And then a lot of your hardware stores will have them. They're not a high inventory item usually, so they're going to run to the 45, 35 range just because of that. And if you want to get, of course, technology has gone into everything. So there's Bluetooth and wireless radon testing now, and those things are $100, $200 depending on how advanced you want to get with the metrics. Typically, if you have a radon contractor need to come in, they're going to have one of those digital continuous monitors to look at your levels before they take any action. So we always wanted to say, let's start with the short-term kit, see where we're at, and then a lot of times if you have a radon expert come in, they will do that measurement with one of those digital technology forums. So the radon mitigation contractors, that's actually a licensed entity in the state of Minnesota. So we have a list of those contractors that service Wright County. So if anyone here or residents need that service and they want to know who can come out to them to get an estimate as quickly as possible, we know the ones that service Wright County, so we can provide that information to them. And then kind of one thing that most contractors will do is they'll, from a troubleshooting standpoint, either they will do it or they'll tell residents to do it, but to go through and try and seal as many things that are exposed as possible. So whether it's cracks in your foundation, covering up your sump buckets, maybe if you have brick wall in your basement to try and kind of line the foundation part of that where it meets with the foundation, or where it seals with the floor, that kind of thing. They might try and have you do some sealing to try and see if that helps with the levels. So that's a big thing that they're going to probably do already. So a lot of times they'll have residents that are looking at that, if they have elevated readings, go through that process first and then see, hey, did sealing, was that enough to prevent that radon gas from coming in? Or is it still elevated to where we need to have that mitigation system put into place? So did I forget anything, Patty? I think that's everything. Okay. So if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. I know it's almost 8:30, so at the end of the meeting, I get that. So, but my contact information is in there. So if anyone here or residents have any questions, by all means, have them reach out. We want to be a resource for residents. So that's why we're doing these face-to-face initiatives and trying to get that information out there. And then if you'd like, I can send Jessica some digital information just to relay our website with kit information, the state's website, that sort of thing. But I'd be more than happy to answer questions before we take off.
Do you know of any legislative actions to make the radon testing mandatory that are coming down or in talks?
They've tried it before. I think the big hiccup with it is that, I don't say a big hiccup, but I think the concern with it is that there's a lot of variables that can affect the radon levels. So if they made a mandatory test, you could have homeowners have every window and door open while they're testing it, and then, well, that's not going to do you any good. So I think it would be hard to control the variables unless you had someone like sitting there for the 3 days while the test is being calculated. So I think that's kind of the issue that they've run into. There's been some legislation with not necessarily the testing piece, but making mitigation mandatory for landlords if a renter tests their property and it's elevated. But that didn't come through just because of a concern of the cost of commercial mitigation. So we don't deter residents from testing. Unfortunately, if you do have an elevated level, there are good landlords out there, so we want renters to report that to their landlord, but it is not a requirement. But kind of a way we like to approach it is if a landlord does make whether it's just a single home structure or an apartment complex, if a landlord does make that investment, that's a good selling piece for future tenants. So that's kind of a way we like to address it, to incentivize the landlord that it's worthy to do, even if you're not required to do it. So to answer your question, long-winded answer, no, there's nothing mandatory from a testing standpoint. So I think the biggest hiccup is controlling the variables when they do the test. And then because it does fluctuate time of season too, not to say a summer test isn't valuable, but if it's 40% lower and you have a readout of 8 in the winter, it could be as low as 4.5 or 5 in the summer. So it just kind of shows that the time of season can be dictated of that too. So that's probably why it's not mandatory. Good question though.
You said the average levels in Montrose were 3.4.
Yes.
How'd you come up with those numbers? What kind of testing was done?
So it's actually just the data from tests that were submitted between 2010 and 2020. So we've actually gotten a few questions about, well, is it worth it to test the soil, before builders build? But the cost of testing the soil has been deemed not to outweigh the cost of testing for radon and mitigating after the build. So it's been especially because it's hard to depict where exactly the metals are, and then because it's subsoil, sometimes if it's clay or if it's sand, measuring the radon gas can be more challenging. But with the levels that we have, the data is from tests that were done between 2010 and 2020. So when you do a test, it gets reported to you, then it gets reported to the Department of Indoor Air with the Department of Health, and so that's where we have that data from.
By region, not your name.
Yep. So it's not, we don't have like the test from each parcel number. We just have the region for Wright County, and then it breaks it up into census tracts. So we have, I think, 11 or 12 different regions that Wright County's broken up into, and that we've kind of looked at. So we were just in Woodland Township prior to this. This area is actually the lower region of Wright County from a level standpoint. Monticello and Annandale, their averages from the test we received were well above 4, some as high as 4.5, 4.7, 4.9. So I'd love to tell you we know exactly why that is. From kind of what I've learned is that sometimes the soil content can dictate how well that gas escapes. So for Monticello, higher sand content, so we're susceptible that the radon gas is able to seep through that easier. Whereas if you have more clay, that might just kind of trap it in, and it just kind of has to decay on its own without being pulled in. So I would love to tell you that I know exactly what soil type and that you're safe because you're here. But there's a lot of different variables that come into play, you know, age of the home, how well it's sealed, that sort of thing.
Just having a walkout basement, have they, I guess, lower content?
That does help because you think about if your basement's not fully encased by soil, there's less gas being pulled in from the soil. I'm not going to deter you from testing, but I will say, you know, my property has a walkout basement, and ours was lower than the neighbors that did it when they first moved in that had their basement sealed. To say that it's a foolproof, if you have a walkout basement that's lower, but just natural logic processing of radon gas and that it comes from contact with the soil, half or 2/3 of your basement is not in contact with the soil. So that does, I would hypothesize that does help. Good question.
But anyway, for $5 test, even if you live in a rural area, it's an average, so might want to make sure that yours isn't an anomaly.
Yep, exactly. Some are probably higher, some are probably lower. That's just the average of the tests that were done. So there's even homes that could be elevated that didn't have tests done between the years of 2010 and 2020.
Any other questions? Thanks, Gavin.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. Next winter, I hope I'll try and get to the beginning so you don't have to stick around so long for us. But we do appreciate the time and the accommodation. And by all means, anyone has questions, feel free to have them reach out, and I can send some information digital wise for resources to share for send it to Jessica in the morning. So
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you.
No open forum requests, upcoming meetings, EDA has been canceled. Next city council meeting is Monday, April 10th, 7 p.m. Next planning and zoning meeting, April 12th, 7 p.m. Community Center, Park and Rec, April 13th, 6:30 p.m. City Hall. That's a busy week. Acknowledgements.
I want to acknowledge all of those people that attended our fish fry this past Friday, and all the volunteers that we had. We had a great turnout. We served over 200 meals, and then also the Celebrate Montrose group for the work that they put in. And within 6 months, they are now officially a 501c3, so we're making progress.
It's good to hear. I just want to acknowledge Public Works and city staff. You guys had another busy couple weeks with the white stuff flying from the sky. We won't mention it. Might trigger some people. And then I also want to give an acknowledgement to Avery, who served as the student liaison. She had said that she is done now, doesn't necessarily have the time for it. So we could start to look for a new student liaison if we'd like. But I just want to acknowledge her for, stepping up and doing that, so.
I'd like to acknowledge Public Works. That's a big word for me.
Makes it worse if you stop.
Yeah, I know it does. For all your guys' hard work, and city staff for everything that you guys constantly do, and Michael for making it through the audit. Appreciate you.
If there's no other acknowledgements, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Mr. Solars. Aye. Ms. Otto.
Aye.
Ms. Andrioff.
Aye.
Mr. Paradise.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes 5-0. We're adjourned. For a second.